Who's the biggest threat to America? Turns out it's you. What U.S. Senator is changing his tune on gay marriage? Plus, I respond to comments. Welcome to Flaming Politics. I'm Jaffe Grant. Here are the headlines you need to be talking about this week. First, a tale of two asylum seekers. Last Thursday, the British government announced it was no longer seeking to deport Iranian Mehdi Kazemi. The 19-year-old college student sought asylum after finding out that his boyfriend in Iran was executed after he was convicted of sodomy. As reported in the Washington Post, Kazemi's boyfriend was tortured into divulging the name of his boyfriend before being executed. Meanwhile, the Swiss government rejected a request by 18-year-old Antoni Zali of Cameroon, whose request was based on the fact that he was gay. His cousin was arrested on suspicion that he was gay, and a similar warrant was issued against Mr. Zali. The Swiss government denied Mr. Zali's original request and gave him 5 days to make an appeal, which was also rejected. Amnesty International responded saying, Switzerland has obligations under international law, including the 1951 UN Refugee Convention, to give asylum seekers access to a fair and satisfactory asylum procedure, and not to return anyone to a country where they would be at risk of serious human rights violations. Last week, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee approved an AIDS bill that would spend $50 billion over the next 5 years to combat AIDS in Africa and across the globe. Included in the bill is a measure that would allow HIV-positive people to enter the U.S., something they haven't been able to do since 1989. That measure was introduced by Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts. Kerry is facing a tough primary challenge right now from Gloucester City Councilman and legislator Ed O'Reilly. O'Reilly has criticized Kerry's previous anti-gay marriage stance, and recently, Kerry, trying to defend himself, told Bay Windows, in Massachusetts, gay marriage is a matter of settled law, and there is no reason to change the law. And now it's time for something from the comments. You're saying it's already taken? I can't use it? You sure? Fine. I'll just go to a graphic. Violet Femme writes, I did not fully understand how you characterized Obama's leadership style, as opposed to Hillary's. Could you clarify that? Violet! You're turning violet, Violet! Because, see, if you take Red America and Blue America and you put them together, you get Violet America. That's a bad joke. Anyway, so, as we all know, Hillary and Barack don't have a huge amount of differences when it comes to policy, but there is a big difference when it comes to leadership style. The truth is, Obama's unbeatable lead isn't so much a factor of his amazing speeches as it is his amazing organizational skills. By having a 50-state strategy and focusing on every tiny little caucus that ever existed, Obama's been able to rack up points that Hillary's just unable to do. Also, he's simply better at staying on message. After losing Ohio and Texas, although he's since won Texas, a lot of people were calling for him to really respond to Clinton's attacks, and he hasn't in the way that you would expect or some people would like. And what this has actually done, now we've seen, is it makes the Clintons sort of focus on changing the direction every day. Seem kind of weak. Last week they were in full attack mode, and this week they're in a very, let's talk about the issues, let's make this a positive race, which is usually what happens after one of their surrogates commits some sort of act of race baiting. To be fair though, I'm an under 30, politically independent guy who likes to be on the internet a lot and works in the media, so I'll let you figure out where my bias leans. Got a question or a comment? If it's a good one, I'll reply to it in the next video. Just put it below. I actually read this stuff. And now for the big story. As you all know by now, Oklahoma, it's the most homophobic state in the nation, Representative Sally Kern recently said, the homosexual agenda is destroying this nation. It's just a fact. Adding, I honestly think it's the biggest threat our nation has, even more so than terrorism or Islam. Since then, Kern has received thousands of letters, which she characterized as death threats, although state officials looked at them and said not really. This brings up a troubling question. How do we respond to someone like this? The stuff she said is just patently ridiculous, and it's based on stupidity and fear. I mean, if anything Kern said was true, my podcast would look more like this.
Hello, and welcome to the Flaming Politics. Here is the latest on the glorious and fabulous plan to create the Fire Island Kiddie Camp and Recruitment Center. The Fierce!
So, the lady's an idiot. But I think rather than us just getting mad, I think it's a better idea for us to question why is she filled with hate so much? The gay gossip site Queerty questioned whether Kern's son, Jesse, was gay, forcing the 31-year-old to respond that he wasn't. In fact, he's actually celibate, saying in a statement, "First of all, no one's sexuality is anyone's business. It is not even my mother's business. I practice celibacy to give to my God." Now, I don't mean to denigrate anyone who chooses a life of celibacy, but if American Beauty has taught us anything, it's the crazy bigoted next-door neighbor who turns out to be gay, or in this case, have a gay son. I mean, celibate son. In this context, Kearns' statement is tragic. I remember when I first came out to my mom, and she was convinced I was going to die of AIDS, because that was just what she knew. Now, Kearns is a lawmaker, and in her own private struggle and grief actually affects the lives of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people living in Oklahoma. But if we're going to have any hope of saving people like Sally, telling them that we wish they were dead isn't going to get us there. If you decide to write a letter to Sally Kern, why not tell her who you are? Put a face on the thing that she doesn't understand. I know when we hear hate speech, it tends to affect us on a primal level. We've all been victim to it in some form or another, and so it brings up wounds that are never going to really fully heal. And if after finding out that being gay can mean being a social worker, or a mother, or a father, or just some dude who works 2 jobs and comes home and plays with his cat, Sally Kern is still a bigot, then at least we won't have let her hate make evil of us. I'm Jaffe Grant, and you've been watching Flaming Politics here on Visible Vote.